But they can't make money off the royal family.
She sold Harry such a lie when she married him. She pretended to be this human rights activist. She pretended to be this hugely successful actress.
Meghan hasn't chosen to ditch private jet flights. She simply can't afford it at the moment, can she? She doesn't have enough mugs who are prepared to waste all that money.
All of which suggests that Meghan's scam jam shop, as ever, is not pulling in the cash.
She was after William first, apparently, before he got married.
Well, let's not act like that whole trip to England wasn't to actually find a British husband.
She married for money. It's very clear she bagged the elephant. She was thrilled. She became a, quote, princess.
This woman is a born manipulator.
The black SUVs didn't just drive away, they fled, quietly. No fanfare, no statements, no teary goodbyes posted to Instagram. Just one after another, staffers pulled out of the Montecito estate and didn't return. First, it was the communications director, then the chef, then someone from Meghan's much-hyped brand innovation team. And finally, according to whispers coming out of the gated community, even the nanny. That's the one that reportedly sent Meghan into full-blown panic mode.
They're already living a billionaire's lifestyle, let's just be honest about it, and they are not anywhere close to earning billionaire money.
Insiders say the calls started early that morning. Meghan on the phone with her finance consultant, then her lawyer, then her brand manager, all in quick succession. Her tone, frantic. What triggered it, allegedly, was a spreadsheet she wasn't supposed to see. Something about liquid reserves being critically low. Not bankrupt, but not stable either. The kind of number that screams sell something or slash staff. And within 24 hours, she did both.
As Meghan Markle's financial woes become alarmingly clear, it emerges that it wasn't only Queen Elizabeth who cottoned on to the American actress's elaborate plan to snare Prince Harry.
Gone was the calm, curated image of a duchess turned mogul. In its place, panic, a behind-the-scenes frenzy to stop the bleeding before the press could catch a whiff. But it was already too late. Page 6 had it first. Another 6 employees let go amicably. Only insiders weren't buying that spin. Not after counting up the full total. More than 25 team members have allegedly exited Meghan and Harry's employment since they relocated to the US. 25. That's not just turnover, that's an exodus. What's even more unsettling, several of those exits reportedly happened after Meghan launched her boutique product line, the so-called As Ever brand. The jam, the dried flowers, the weirdly thin rosé, that was supposed to be her comeback. A pivot from princess to profitable powerhouse. But behind the pastel packaging and lifestyle blurbs, the numbers didn't lie. The product wasn't selling like she'd hoped.
Right from the outset, William, we're told, saw right through Meghan and swiftly concluded that she had not the slightest intention of staying in the royal family for long.
According to industry sources, the return rate was higher than anticipated, and the margins unsustainable at scale. So while Meghan was posting poetic captions about simple joys and elevated flavor profiles, her CFO, yes, she allegedly hired one, was quietly flagging expenses, especially payroll. And when the pink slip pile started growing, it wasn't just support staff being cut. A senior advisor reportedly walked out after warning that the couple's spending far outpaced their actual income, even with Harry's inheritance, even with the Netflix deal still technically active. That's when the rumor about the nanny hit. Some say she left because her paycheck was late. Others claim she saw too much, like financial documents lying open on the kitchen counter. Whatever the reason, her sudden departure set off alarm bells. Because as one Hollywood insider put it, if the nanny walks, it's not just personal, it's structural. And Meghan? According to one former staffer, she's gone into shutdown mode, canceling meetings, skipping Zoom calls, delegating everything while trying to figure out how to spin this. But you can't spin a mass exodus. Not when former aides are already leaking whispers to the press. Not when neighbors report seeing moving trucks idling just beyond the hedges. But that was only the beginning.
But at the end of the day, the reality is she was a suitcase girl who got a D-list kind of job on Suits, which wasn't even a very successful cable show. And the fact is, Hollywood is competitive. If she couldn't crack that, she definitely can't crack any other markets.
Before the rosé, before the jam, before the documentaries, the headlines, the lawsuits, and the Netflix cameras, there was a quiet moment inside Windsor Castle. A moment that, until recently, had only been shared in hushed tones by those closest to the crown. According to a royal family cousin, Queen Elizabeth sat back in her favorite chair, looked a confidante straight in the eye, and said, "We hope, but we do not believe they're truly in love." That wasn't a throwaway line. That was a coded royal warning. The kind of sentence the Queen only ever used when her instincts were screaming. And her instincts, by all accounts, were spot on. Because what we now know is that the late Queen harbored deep doubts about Meghan from the very start. Not because of her nationality, not even because of her Hollywood roots, but because, as insiders claim, Her Majesty sensed something transactional in Meghan's eyes, something calculated. It wasn't just the Queen either. Prince William, always the more cautious of the brothers, allegedly picked up on the same vibe. According to royal biographer Phil Dampier, William's radar went off almost immediately. He saw the whirlwind courtship, the intense PR framing, the "I didn't Google Harry" line Meghan floated, and he reportedly called it out behind closed doors. "She's not here to stay," William warned. "She's here to launch." That confrontation, though, didn't go the way he hoped. Instead of opening Harry's eyes, it ignited the biggest family rupture in recent royal memory. Because when William voiced his fears, Harry didn't just disagree, he erupted.
They're just whining millennial windbags with a permanent victim complex, knowing that victimhood is what makes them all the money.
Some insiders say it was the first time Harry ever raised his voice to William. Others claim Meghan was nearby, listening in. Either way, something snapped. From that day forward, the brothers weren't brothers anymore. They were adversaries. And now, years later, as staff flee the Montecito estate and Meghan's business ventures falter, royal watchers are revisiting those early warnings with fresh clarity. Because what the Queen suspected, that Meghan saw Harry as a gateway, not a partner, is now being whispered across Montecito cocktail parties and British press rooms alike, especially as Meghan allegedly fights to keep her lifestyle afloat, while the duchy she walked away from watches from afar. There's also the detail about the tiara. Remember that? Back when Meghan was preparing for her wedding, sources say there was a behind-the-scenes clash over which royal tiara she could borrow. The Queen reportedly offered one option. Meghan wanted another. In the end, Elizabeth stood her ground and made her disappointment known. Not in public, never in public. But insiders claim the Queen told her dresser, "That girl thinks she's running the firm." But even that paled in comparison to what came later, when the Queen allegedly learned Meghan had inked business ideas before her wedding. Deals, domain names, branding blueprints for life after royalty. And if that's true, it explains a lot. Especially why the Queen's tone toward Harry became more clipped, more formal. Why she refused to privately endorse his move to California, even as he begged her for support. Still, the most shocking detail? The Queen reportedly put her thoughts in writing. A sealed letter, handed to her private secretary, outlining her final judgment on the Sussex situation. That letter's contents remain confidential, for now. But if William ever decides to share it, everything could change. And just wait until you hear what he did next.
That is not hard work. Hard work is get up in the morning, get to 7 o'clock, get into a factory or a shop and working for 10 hours on your feet, coming home knackered. That's not what happens to her.
And still being a mom.
That is not what happens to her.
It was supposed to be a casual conversation, one brother to another. No aides, no advisors, just William and Harry behind closed doors at Kensington Palace. But what started as a quiet check-in spiraled into a moment that would split the monarchy in two. William didn't go in with accusations. He went in with concern. But according to royal insiders, he left that room shaken, furious, and fully convinced that the woman Harry was about to marry had no intention of playing by royal rules. William allegedly started gently. He told Harry he was moving fast, that he barely knew Meghan, that marrying someone who thrived on camera attention, someone who once blogged about manifesting a lifestyle, might not end well for a man raised in the shadows of Buckingham Palace tradition. But Harry didn't hear concern. He heard judgment. Worse, he heard it as jealousy. Some say Harry snapped, others say it was more controlled, his voice cold, his words razor sharp. He accused William of trying to ruin his relationship. He said Meghan was being picked apart simply because she was different. And when William pushed back, reportedly asking whether Meghan would ever truly commit to royal life, Harry walked out. But the damage had already been done. Meghan, insiders claim, had been warned that this might happen, that the family, especially William, would try to block her. One former aide even alleges that Meghan called it inevitable behind the scenes. So when Harry came back from that showdown, angry and shaken, she was ready to comfort him, ready to frame the situation as us versus them. That moment, say palace sources, is when Harry went all in, and from that point forward, nothing was the same. The brothers stopped speaking regularly. Meghan and Kate's once friendly exchanges turned cool and distant. Plans for a shared charity foundation were scrapped, staff were split, and even during public engagements, photographers noted the change. No eye contact, no brotherly banter, just two men orbiting each other like cold planets. Now here's the twist. According to one royal watcher, William didn't just give up after that fight. He allegedly tried again.
When worried Wills made his feelings clear to besotted Harry, the bitter brothers at war feud began.
Months later, when he heard that Meghan and Harry were privately expressing misgivings about royal life, William sent a message through a trusted aide, a soft offer to meet, to talk, maybe even to build a bridge. Harry never responded. Some say he wasn't allowed to. Others say he was too deep in now, too emotionally invested to backtrack without embarrassment. But either way, the moment passed, and the rift hardened. So much so that when Queen Elizabeth passed away, the brothers' interactions at her funeral were limited to a few seconds. Cold nods, forced civility, no warmth, no real reconciliation. And now, according to a source close to William, the chances of rebuilding that bond are less than zero. Not just because of the past, but because of what's happening now. The financial panic, the spiraling brand, the headlines swirling around Montecito. William's allegedly watching it all unfold, and unlike before, he's saying nothing, because from his point of view, the collapse was always coming. But nothing could have prepared him or us for what Harry's planning next. The Montecito estate was supposed to be their sanctuary, their reset, their grand escape from palace pressure and British tabloids. But now, behind those manicured hedges and oversized iron gates, it's sounding more like a trap, a luxurious sun-drenched trap, one that leaks money faster than even Meghan can rebrand it. Sources close to the Sussex Circle say the property itself is bleeding them dry. We're talking a sprawling mansion with 9 bedrooms, multiple fireplaces, a private gym, guest houses, and a perfectly curated chicken coop for the cameras. But along with that comes relentless maintenance, groundskeepers, security, housekeepers, chefs, nannies, dog walkers, pool specialists, staff rotation. It adds up fast. And here's the kicker. Unlike the royal palaces, this one doesn't come with a taxpayer-funded staff. Every bill lands on their personal desk. Every renovation, every leaking pipe, every avocado tree that needs hand watering, all of it. And insiders claim Meghan's been increasingly frustrated that the overhead is spiraling while the income is not. Which brings us to the shocking part.
Royal author Phil Dampier said, Meghan saw marrying Harry as a stepping stone to new fame and fortune, and I think that's what initially Prince William was concerned about, and that's why they fell out.
Some sources allege that a recent attempt to refinance their Montecito home didn't go smoothly. That's right. According to a property insider, the couple inquired about restructuring certain debts and were reportedly told that lenders were concerned about unstable revenue streams. In plain English, you're spending like tech moguls but bringing in cash like influencers. And here's where things get really messy. Remember the As Ever brand, the pastel packaging, the whimsical slogans, the happy jam and apricot flower bundles. That was Meghan's comeback, her shot at carving out an identity beyond Duchess and Diva. But word on the street is, the return rate is way higher than projected. Some retailers allegedly dropped out after tasting the jam and realizing it was more thin syrup than spread. One brutally honest review even described the product as gray and joyless. Now stack that on top of Chateau Meg Rosé. Yes, the wine, and it starts to look like a pattern. Beautiful branding, elegant launch, but weak follow-through. Buyers have been publicly complaining about sky-high shipping costs, long delivery times, and product quality that just doesn't match the hype. Some even accused Meghan of outsourcing everything while charging celebrity-level markups for grocery store-level goods. And with that kind of chatter swirling, the brand can't grow. Investors get nervous, retailers pause, customers back out. And Meghan, according to insiders, she's stopped checking the Shopify dashboard altogether. One even said she's emotionally detached from the business now, treating it more like an image accessory than a serious company. Meanwhile, Harry, bless him, is said to be completely out of his depth. He doesn't understand the product world. He reportedly thought a launch just meant doing a promo photo shoot. The only time he got involved, says one ex-employee, was to taste test the wine. And even then, he joked that it reminded him of Buckingham Palace rosé, but without the dignity. But here's the most unsettling part. Meghan's team allegedly asked Netflix for an early advance last month, something short-term to float a new documentary concept. The response? A polite delay, because even the streamers, it seems, are watching and waiting. And Meghan may have just realized it's already too late. But what's happening behind the scenes with their biggest deals? That's when things get really dire. The deals were supposed to change everything. When Harry and Meghan inked their multi-million-dollar contracts with Netflix and Spotify, it was framed as the ultimate power move, a way to prove they didn't need the royal family because they had Hollywood now. But fast forward and the sheen is wearing off fast. And behind the scenes, sources claim the executives aren't just disappointed, they're quietly pulling back. Let's start with Spotify. The much-hyped Archetypes podcast landed with a bang. Big press push, A-list guests, and Meghan's familiar I'm Just Like You narrative wrapped in polished voiceovers. But after a few episodes, the numbers started tanking. According to insiders, retention was shockingly low. Listeners clicked, skimmed, and moved on.
These latest revelations mirror the fears of the late Queen, who we now know doubted that Meghan was in love with her naive grandson and believed that the artful divorcee engineered the entire romance.
One Spotify exec allegedly called the show all surface, no soul. And it got worse. A former audio producer claimed Meghan was not interested in doing the hard work, that she recorded lines late, skipped creative meetings, and pushed for perfect edits instead of authentic conversations. Then came the bombshell report that Spotify had parted ways with the Sussexes altogether. No public scandal, no fiery press release, just a quiet cancellation and a massive chunk of change lost. Then there's Netflix. Initially, there was buzz. Their documentary on the royal split drew global attention, massive views, tons of headlines, but it also opened a Pandora's box. Critics slammed the series as one-sided, with the Times calling it glossy victimhood dressed up as activism, And after that peak moment, crickets. Sources say Netflix expected follow-ups, more content, more access. Instead, they got vague pitches, concepts that allegedly lack structure. There was talk of a children's series, a nature docu-series, even a scripted drama based loosely on Meghan's own life, which Netflix reportedly passed on. One exec allegedly joked, "We're not in the Meghan Markle fan club, we're a business." Worse, there's chatter that the contract includes performance benchmarks, meaning if certain content isn't delivered by a deadline, Netflix has the right to reduce or withdraw future payouts. That deadline, according to insiders, may be fast approaching. And so what does Meghan do? She pivots, at least tries to. Sources say she recently pitched a new idea to executives at both companies, a wellness meets lifestyle competition show, featuring non-celebrities competing for funding. Think Shark Tank meets Goop. The reaction? Lukewarm at best. Some allegedly found it too unfocused. Others felt it clashed with her duchess persona. And Harry, he's reportedly working on his own project too. Something about sustainability. But industry sources say it's vague, lacking vision, and most of all, lacking a hook. It's like they want to say something, said one executive, but they don't know what. So where does that leave them? Massive contracts, minimal output, declining leverage, and a growing sense that the Hollywood honeymoon might be over. Even the executives who once cheered their independence are now watching the brand stall and silently wondering whether the Sussexes still have any cultural pull left. But that's when Harry allegedly floated something wild, a new venture that could change everything or humiliate them both.
She does scheme, but she doesn't scheme very well. I mean, look at where she's got. I mean, this is an elaborate plan she's had for many years. She married a prince and she thought he was a billionaire. Guess what? He's not.
And Meghan's reaction? Let's just say she didn't hold back. No one saw it coming. Not even Meghan. According to insiders, Harry stormed into their home office one afternoon, a stack of scribbled papers in one hand and a half-drunk protein shake in the other, claiming he had finally cracked it. This, he said, was the idea, the one that would silence critics, make headlines, and most importantly, pay the bills. Meghan, already drained from a call with her brand consultant about declining web sales, allegedly didn't even look up. The idea? Sources say it's some kind of eco-tech community app aimed at encouraging people to take small sustainable actions, tracking carbon footprints, planting trees, walking instead of driving. Sounds noble, right? The problem? Harry has no experience in tech, no development team, and no clear monetization strategy. It was like watching someone pitch a TED Talk after reading one Wired article, said a former colleague who was allegedly consulted and swiftly ghosted when he raised concerns. What's more, the timing couldn't have been worse. The family's finances, insiders say, are already under strain. Meghan's as-ever products are stalling. Their Netflix momentum is fading. Spotify is gone. The palace purse is sealed. And now Harry wants to build an app from scratch? Meghan, one source claims, called it a vanity project with no payout. And she wasn't wrong. According to reports, Harry began shopping the idea around discreetly to venture capital circles in California, and even to a few royal-adjacent contacts in the UK. But here's the twist. When potential investors did their due diligence, they panicked. One venture partner allegedly told a colleague, "He's a risk. Too much drama, too many leaks. He could tweet something tomorrow that kills the brand." And with that, the door slammed shut. But the fallout didn't stop there. King Charles, who had remained relatively silent through the couple's Hollywood evolution, allegedly drew a new line in the sand. After learning about Harry's pitch tour and how some of it referenced his royal upbringing, he reportedly cut off all direct communication. No phone calls, no intermediaries, nothing. The message was clear. If Harry keeps selling the crown's mystique, he's on his own. And that leaves Meghan in an increasingly awkward position. According to a former staffer, she's quietly furious. Not because Harry's trying something new, but because it's distracting from her brand. Insiders claim she views every off-brand Harry project as a threat to the Duchess empire she's trying to build. One person close to the couple even claimed Meghan asked him to keep it quiet until she could assess the optics. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, a crisis PR firm has allegedly been brought in. Not for scandals, for strategy. Meghan's camp wants to reposition her image as refined entrepreneurial royalty, not California chaos. And that means distance. Distance from the chaos. Distance from the jam flops. Distance from Harry's tech fantasy. But when word got out that Meghan was quietly trademarking new phrases tied to her royal title, the backlash was instant, and it dragged her failing product line into a whole new controversy.
People at high levels who have worked for Bill Gates, Patagonia, all these sorts of things. And yet none of them have been successful. The common denominator in everything here is Harry and Meghan.
One that's now being whispered about in Hollywood and mocked across the internet. Wait until you hear what's being said about Scam Jam. When Meghan Markle launched her as-ever lifestyle brand, the rollout was picture perfect, literally. pastel-toned product photos, delicate calligraphy, a curated Instagram grid full of soft lighting and captions about intentional joy. It was poised to be her Gwyneth Paltrow moment. But what started as a duchess's attempt to build a global empire quickly devolved into something else entirely, a punchline. It all began with the jam. Officially labeled a fruit spread due to US regulations, Meghan's apricot concoction was sold as a gourmet artisan item meant to symbolize mindfulness, simplicity, and slow living. But when it arrived at doorsteps, buyers were confused, and then furious. Food bloggers called it watery. One reviewer said it had the consistency of melted cough syrup. Even worse, there wasn't enough fruit in it to legally be called jam. That's when the hashtag started gaining traction. Scam jam. It was brutal, and it got louder. Customers posted side-by-side photos comparing Meghan's $30 jar with supermarket versions that cost a fraction of the price and actually had more fruit. Others mocked the product's tagline, a dash of delight, saying the only thing it delivered was a splash of disappointment. A few even tried returning it, only to be met with automated emails and no refund process. That's when screenshots began surfacing, people exposing hidden fees, surprise shipping costs, broken jars arriving in flimsy packaging. The backlash spread faster than the jam ever could, and just when Meghan's team thought the buzz might die down, came the rosé. Marketed as Chateau Meg, the rosé was meant to be elegant, feminine, fresh, but once again, the reviews were merciless. Wine critics described it as flat, metallic, and indistinct. One even said it tastes like it sat next to a better bottle for too long. Social media dubbed it rosé regret, and Meghan's attempt to frame the wine as sunshine in a glass was instantly ridiculed when someone pointed out that the vineyard wasn't even hers. The bottle was reportedly a private label rebrand from an existing producer, meaning Meghan slapped her name on someone else's wine, upped the price, and hoped no one would notice. Well, they noticed, and according to insiders, it triggered a full-blown internal scramble. Meghan's brand team allegedly rushed into damage control, quietly contacting influencers and offering exclusive tasting kits to anyone willing to post something nice. One well-known food writer turned them down flat, telling a colleague, "I'm not selling lies for jam." To make matters worse, critics began picking apart the brand's entire aesthetic. The dead flower bundles, the recycled jars, the suggestion that buyers could use empty containers to store paintbrushes or buttons. It all felt, according to one former fan, like an overpriced Etsy shop wrapped in royal nostalgia. Sales reportedly plummeted, retailers backed out, and Meghan's original plan to launch a full line of products, teas, oils, maybe even candles, was shelved. For now. But perhaps the most telling sign of how far things have fallen, staff allegedly joke in private about using the jam as doorstops. One even claimed Harry hasn't touched a jar since the photo shoot. Still, Meghan refuses to admit defeat. And as pressure mounts, she's looking to someone unexpected to clean up the mess.
He was after William first, apparently, before he got married.
Well, let's not act like that whole trip to England wasn't to actually find a British husband. She was just very lucky to have literally lucked out and be set up through a mutual friend.
Someone known in elite circles as the ultimate Hollywood fixer. But this so-called fixer's first piece of advice? Get ahead of the narrative, because the celebrities around her are starting to scatter. For years, Meghan Markle moved through Hollywood like royalty in exile, gracing the same tables as billionaires, trading messages with media moguls, and counting on name friendships with the kind of women who don't follow trends. They start them. But lately, the temperature in those rooms has changed. Fast. And insiders say it's not just about jam flops or wine reviews. It's about money, optics, and brand risk. It started subtly, a no-show here, a silence there, but now the pattern is unmistakable. Celebrity friends, the ones Meghan once leaned on for clout and cover, are reportedly pulling back, quietly, deliberately, and in some cases, permanently. Let's talk Oprah, the woman who gave Meghan and Harry their most watched interview ever, whose name practically validated the entire Sussex brand, has gone curiously quiet. No reposts, no public support, no quote-unquote "we stand by them" moment when things started to sour. And while their teams insist there's no rift, sources close to the situation say Oprah is done lending her halo to what some now call a failing lifestyle experiment. Then there's Serena Williams. Once considered Meghan's ride or die, the tennis icon has been noticeably absent from any as-ever product mentions. No Instagram shout-out, no rosé in hand at the beach, not even a congratulatory message when the brand launched. Some say it's because Serena's own business team warned her off. That aligning with a floundering label, especially one tied to royal drama, would be a distraction. Others whisper Serena's grown weary of being dragged into Meghan's headlines altogether. But perhaps the most symbolic shift came from Tyler Perry. The man who once housed the Sussexes during their post-royal transition hasn't been publicly seen with them in over a year. He's been launching films, attending premieres, making statements. But none of them have included Meghan and Harry. What's more, insiders allege that Meghan has quietly stopped name-dropping him altogether. "It used to be constant," said one former publicist. Now, nothing. Like he vanished. And this isn't just about A-listers. At this year's New Year's gathering reportedly hosted by a tech billionaire in the Caribbean, Meghan and Harry were absent. And while official explanations pointed to schedule conflicts, guests at the event tell a different story. One said they overheard someone mutter, "Too much heat, too much baggage." Another claimed that Harry had been invited solo and turned it down flat. Meanwhile, Hollywood stylists and event planners have started placing bets, quiet ones, on whether Meghan will get another Vogue cover before the year's out. Some say yes if she reinvents. Others say not a chance. One stylist allegedly joked, "If she shows up with jam, I'm leaving." The optics are shifting fast, and it's affecting everything from deal-making to brand partnerships. Insiders say Meghan's pitches are being met with longer pause times, longer review periods. One executive allegedly told a contact, "We need to wait and see how this unfolds. No one wants to be the next casualty." And that brings us to the most telling moment of all.
The thing is, you're so right though, it was very obvious, because you don't come into something like the royal family and start with a bunch of lies saying, "I don't even know who you guys are. I didn't even Google Harry on the way to the date." Come on, Meghan, give me a break. Of course she did.
According to a barista at a quiet Santa Barbara cafe, Harry was spotted alone last week, baseball cap pulled low, phone pressed to his ear, visibly distressed. He was pacing, muttering, and then for a solid minute, he just stood there, frozen. What or who was on the other end of that call? Whatever it was, it may have led straight to the moment royal insiders are now calling the Montecito meltdown. And it's darker than anyone expected. It started with raised voices. That much neighbors agree on. One of them, a Montecito resident who asked not to be named, says the shouting echoed down the olive tree-lined driveway just after 10 p.m. Harry's voice, then Meghan's, then silence. And just when it seemed like things had cooled, a door slammed so loud it made the dogs bark 3 houses over. But it didn't stop there. About 20 minutes later, a figure was seen on foot, hood up, head down, walking briskly through the quiet streets of one of California's most exclusive enclaves. It was Harry, alone. And according to 2 separate sources, he rang at least 3 doorbells before someone recognized him and stepped outside to talk. No one knows exactly what he said, but one source claims Harry asked politely but anxiously if they had the number for a property tax consultant. Another neighbor swears they heard him say the words "can't find it," followed by something about overdue forms. And yes, there's even a whisper that he asked if their assistant could help scan a few documents. This is Montecito. People don't knock on doors at night, not even former royals. Back at the house, Meghan was allegedly pacing too, but for a very different reason. According to a former staffer who was called that night but refused to come in, Meghan had just discovered something chilling. Their property tax assessment had spiked hard. Combined with their lifestyle overhead, stalled product revenue, and soft Netflix royalties, the numbers were starting to squeeze. She reportedly blamed Harry, said he should have flagged it, said she had too much on her plate. And when he offered to call the accountant himself, sources claim she snapped, "What are you even good at anymore?" That line, if it really happened, might have hit Harry like a truck. Because that night, one of their longtime bodyguards allegedly contacted a wellness advisor from their team in LA. Nothing dramatic, no emergency, just a check-in, a heads up. "There's a lot of tension in the house right now," he reportedly said. "He's not doing great." Another person close to the couple claims this wasn't an isolated incident, that tensions have been building for months, that Meghan's stress about the brand failing, combined with Harry's perceived helplessness, has turned their private life into a slow-burning pressure cooker. And here's where it gets even more serious. According to someone with ties to their legal team, Meghan has begun asking questions about asset protections. Not because she's planning to leave, but because allegedly, she wants to ensure her brand is legally separate from Harry's endeavors, especially now that he's pitching erratic business ideas and, in her words, draining credibility. Some staff believe lawyers are already drafting contingencies, not divorce papers, but business protections, emergency documents, quiet conversations, all of it shielded under ironclad NDAs. But others believe it's bigger than that, because if Meghan is preparing for a total brand breakaway, then what we've seen so far, the jam, the wine, the interviews, that was just the warm-up. And what comes next? Let's just say it may involve downsizing, selling heirlooms, and turning to options the Sussexes once vowed they'd never consider. You're not ready for what happens if the money really runs out. This is the question now swirling around Montecito's manicured hedges and beyond. Not just whispered among royal watchers or tabloid readers, but among brand managers, stylists, and ex-friends who know exactly how much this lifestyle costs. What happens if the money dries up? If the glamorous facade finally cracks and Meghan and Harry are forced to face what many insiders believe has been building for years, a financial implosion dressed in floral Instagram filters. Because here's what we're hearing, it's already started. Behind closed doors, discussions are allegedly underway about options, and not the curated, PR-friendly kind. We're talking real decisions, downsizing, liquidating, retreating. One source close to a Montecito realtor claims there have been quiet inquiries about how discreetly a property of that size could be put on the market. No official listing, just back-channel feelers, a whisper to the right investor, a broker's nod, because selling the estate might be the only way to stop the bleeding, at least temporarily. But the deeper fear that even that won't be enough, because the money spent isn't just tied up in property, it's in branding, in contracts, in reputational debt. And with Meghan's product line floundering and Harry's new ventures falling flat, insiders say there's very little left to float the empire they built on rebellion and reinvention. There's even talk, yes really, about parting with royal heirlooms. One palace insider claims Meghan has asked pointed questions about the resale value of Diana's jewelry. Another says a contact in New York's luxury auction scene has been approached by someone allegedly linked to the Sussex Circle, asking for confidentiality agreements before beginning any appraisal discussion. Whether that leads to anything, we don't know. But even the whisper of it is enough to set off alarm bells across Windsor. And the most humiliating option of all, reality television. Multiple sources say Meghan has been approached more than once about doing a docu-style show focused on life after royalty. She turned it down at first, but according to one Hollywood insider, she's no longer saying never. She's saying, what would it look like? It would look like desperation, and it would mark the final nail in the fantasy of royal dignity they once clung to so tightly. Meanwhile, the staff who left, they've started talking. Not publicly, not yet, but privately, quietly. And what they're saying is damning, that the household was chaos, that paychecks were often delayed, that Meghan allegedly micromanaged everything except the money, and that Harry, he spent more time walking their dogs than doing anything resembling work. It's a picture that doesn't match the carefully crafted narrative. And maybe that's the real issue. The curtain has lifted, the illusion is slipping, and even the most loyal followers are starting to ask the question, what was the plan? Was there one at all? Or did Meghan think the royal glow would last forever? Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you won't believe what's coming next.